The snow comes down quietly at first, not as a storm, not yet. Just a thin gray veil drifting across a northern plain, settling over grass, bone, horn, and frozen soil. The sky hangs low. The air is dry enough to bite. The horizon stretches so wide that every living thing beneath it seems smaller than it should. From a distance, the landscape almost feels like a savanna. Open country, herds moving under a pale sky, predators hidden near the edges, enormous herbivores feeding in the wind. But this is not Africa. This is central Alaska, more than 30,000 years ago. And almost everything moving across this frozen grassland belongs to a world that no longer exists. Woolly mammoths cross the plain with long brown hair swaying from their bodies. Their curved tusks rise like pale blades against the cold air. Steppe bison graze in heavy herds, their shoulders high, their skulls armed with horns far larger than those of modern bison. Wild horses scrape through the snow to reach the grass beneath. Reindeer drift in restless groups. Saiga antelope move through the open country with strange, swollen noses shaped by dust, wind, and cold. Farther out, predators wait. Cave lions watch from low cover. Wolves follow the weak. Giant bears search the country like moving walls of muscle and fur. This was the Ice Age, but not the empty frozen wasteland most people imagine. It was a brutal grassland empire, cold, dry, dangerous, and alive. And on this day, one animal makes a mistake. A steppe bison bull has drifted too far from the herd. He is not small. He is not old. He is not helpless. He weighs close to a metric ton, with shoulders taller than many men. His body is thick, compact, and powerful. His horns sweep outward from his skull in massive curves, wider and more intimidating than anything carried by living bison today. Let us call him Blue. Blue lowers his head into the pale grass. His breath rises in short bursts of steam. Around him, the herd continues to move, thousands of hooves pressing through snow and frozen soil. The distance grows slowly, a few steps, then a few more. On a modern plain, that distance might not matter. Here, it can decide whether an animal survives the next minute. The grass shifts. 2 cave lions are moving toward him. They are larger than modern African lions, heavier, more cold adapted. Their bodies are built for open terrain and powerful prey. They do not carry the heavy mane people associate with male lions today. Cave art made by Ice Age humans suggests these cats looked leaner around the neck, more streamlined, more severe. They move without rushing. Predators in this world cannot afford to waste energy. Every chase costs heat. Every injury can become a death sentence. Every failed hunt pushes hunger closer. So the cave lions wait until Blue has already done the most dangerous part for them. He has separated himself. The sky darkens. Snow begins to fall harder. Blue raises his head. The lions charge. The first cave lion comes in from the front, forcing the bison to turn. Blue swings his horns through the air with enough force to break bone. His hooves tear into the frozen ground. His shoulders twist. For one violent moment, his entire body becomes a weapon. But the second cave lion hits from the side. Claws catch hide. Teeth find flesh. The first lion presses the attack again. Blue fights with the strength of an Ice Age giant, but the cave lions are not trying to overpower him in a contest of raw strength. They are breaking his balance. They are opening wounds. They are forcing the bull to burn energy faster than his body can recover it. For a few violent moments, the plain becomes nothing but noise. Hooves, snow, breath, muscle, blood. Then Blue falls. His body slams into the frosted grass. Steam rises from the wounds. His legs kick once, then slow. The herd has already moved too far to help. In the Pleistocene, even a giant can disappear into the rhythm of survival. The cave lions stand over the kill, but before they can feed, the weather changes. The snow thickens, the wind rises, the sky collapses into white. A blizzard sweeps across the plain with enough force to erase distance. The cave lions, built for cold but not immune to it, abandon the carcass and vanish into the storm. Blue's body begins to freeze where it lies. His flesh hardens. His hide stiffens. Snow gathers over his horns, his skull, his shoulders, and his open wounds. By morning, the bison is partly buried. In time, he is sealed deeper. Then the landscape covers him completely. The herd forgets him. The predators move on. The ecosystem continues. But the frozen ground remembers. Thousands of years later, Blue's preserved body will be pulled from the Alaskan permafrost. Minerals will stain him with a bluish color. Scientists will call him Blue Babe. His body will carry evidence of predator attack, freezing, burial, and preservation. Blue Babe will become more than a specimen. He will become a doorway, because inside that frozen carcass is a vanished planet. A world where lions hunted bison in Alaska, mammoths moved across grasslands beside glaciers, and humans shared the earth with giants that were not mythological, not ancient in the dinosaur sense, and not far removed from the animals alive today. They were close, almost close enough to touch. The Pleistocene epoch lasted from about 2.6 million years ago to roughly 11,700 years ago. In human terms, that is an immense span of time. But in the full history of Earth, it is brief. Dinosaurs vanished around 66 million years ago. Complex animal life reaches back hundreds of millions of years. Earth itself is about 4.5 billion years old. The last ice age was not deep time in the same way the age of dinosaurs was deep time. It was recent. The bones are still recognizable. The frozen bodies still contain tissue. The cave paintings were made by human hands. The DNA, in some cases, still survives. That is what makes the Ice Age so haunting. It does not feel like a fantasy world separated from us by impossible distance. It feels like a version of our own world that was suddenly emptied. And to understand why that world existed, we have to begin with the cold itself. The Ice Age was not an accident of winter. It was the result of planetary machinery. For most of the last 500 million years, Earth has not been dominated by massive ice sheets. There have been long, warm intervals when polar regions were far less frozen than today, when forests reached into high latitudes, when seas were higher, and when the planet looked nothing like the frozen maps associated with the Pleistocene. So the real question is not simply why the Ice Age was cold. The deeper question is how Earth became the kind of planet that could build ice sheets kilometers thick, expose land bridges between continents, and create a grassland ecosystem stretching across half the northern hemisphere. The answer begins far to the south, around 30 million years ago. Antarctica was not always as isolated as it is now. In earlier geological ages, it had connections to other southern landmasses. But as continents drifted, Antarctica separated more completely from South America. Between them opened a body of water known as the Drake Passage. That opening changed the planet. Once the Drake Passage formed, ocean water could circulate around Antarctica with fewer interruptions. Over time, this helped create the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, one of the most powerful ocean current systems on Earth. This current wraps around Antarctica and helps isolate the continent from warmer waters to the north. Antarctica became trapped inside its own ring of cold. With limited sunlight at the pole and less access to warm ocean currents, ice began to accumulate. Glaciers expanded. Snow survived summer after summer. The continent whitened. And that whiteness was not passive. Ice reflects sunlight. Dark ground and dark ocean water absorb more solar energy. White snow and ice reflect much of that energy back into space. Scientists call this reflectivity albedo. When ice sheets expand, they increase Earth's albedo. More sunlight is reflected away. The planet cools. Cooler temperatures allow more ice to form. More ice reflects even more sunlight. This is a feedback loop, and feedback loops can turn regional changes into global consequences. Antarctica's freezing did not create the last ice age by itself, not exactly as we know it, but it was one major step in a much larger cooling trend. Other regions and processes contributed as well. Mountain building, ocean circulation, atmospheric chemistry, and changing continental positions all played roles. The Tibetan Plateau and other high-elevation regions influenced wind patterns, precipitation, and reflectivity. High mountains encouraged snow and ice to persist. As ice expanded in more places, the planet became increasingly capable of entering colder states. Then another major event occurred. North and South America connected. The Isthmus of Panama closed the seaway between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans around a few million years ago. This changed ocean circulation in a profound way. Tropical water movement shifted. Atlantic currents reorganized. The Gulf Stream became more important in transporting warm water and moisture northward. In a cooling world, moisture moving north can become snow, and snow is the raw material of ice sheets. This is one of the strangest truths about glaciation. A cold world alone is not enough. If the air is too dry, glaciers cannot grow. Ice sheets require snowfall. They require precipitation that does not fully melt away. The Pleistocene was built from both cold and accumulation. Year after year, snow survived. Layer after layer, it compressed. Ice spread outward. By the time Earth entered the Pleistocene, the planet had become primed for repeated glacial cycles. But the Pleistocene was not one continuous freeze. It was a world of pulses. Cold periods came and went. Glaciers advanced, then retreated. Sea levels dropped, then rose. Forests expanded, then collapsed. Grasslands appeared, disappeared, and returned. These cold phases are called glacial periods. The warmer intervals between them are called interglacial periods. We live in one of those warmer intervals today, the Holocene interglacial. The rhythm behind these cycles is tied partly to the way Earth moves through space. Milankovitch cycles describe slow changes in Earth's orbit and orientation. Earth's axial tilt shifts. The direction of Earth's axis changes. The shape of Earth's orbit varies from more circular to more elliptical. These changes alter how sunlight falls across the planet. Not evenly, not instantly, but enough. At high northern latitudes, small changes in summer sunlight can decide whether winter snow melts away or survives. If summer sunlight is weak enough, snow remains on the ground. More snow accumulates the next winter. Over thousands of years, that snow can become an ice sheet. For the earlier part of the Pleistocene, glacial cycles often followed a rhythm of about 41,000 years, closely tied to changes in axial tilt. Later, around 1 million years ago, the rhythm shifted towards cycles closer to 100,000 years, linked more strongly with orbital eccentricity. Why that transition happened is still not fully resolved, but the consequence is clear. Earth became a planet that repeatedly remade itself. During warm interglacials, forests spread, animals moved north, sea levels rose, coastlines flooded, river systems changed. Species adapted to warmer habitats expanded into territories that would later become impossible. During glacial periods, the opposite happened. Ice sheets advanced, sea levels fell, dry winds moved across continents, forests retreated, grasslands expanded. Cold-adapted animals pushed across the northern hemisphere. This constant transformation created one of the most dramatic ecological stages in the history of mammals. And the last of these great glacial cycles produced the world of Blue Babe. The last interglacial ended roughly 115,000 to 110,000 years ago. During that warmer time, parts of the world looked surprisingly modern, and some regions were even warmer than they are today. Forests existed farther north. Rivers supported animals that now seem out of place in those latitudes. Hippopotamuses lived as far north as Britain during warm phases. In Alaska, environments could support forests in areas that would later become open, cold grassland. This is the first mistake many people make about the Ice Age. They imagine one frozen condition. But the Ice Age was not one world. It was many worlds, shifting against each other. Warm refuges, frozen interiors, open steppe, forest corridors, glacial deserts, wetlands, coastal plains exposed by falling seas. Each climate phase rearranged life. When the world warmed, animals such as straight-tusked elephants, mastodons, warm-adapted rhinoceroses, hippos, hyenas, and lions expanded their ranges. When the world cooled, those same animals retreated, while cold-adapted species surged outward. Woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, steppe bison, saiga antelope, wild horses, cave lions. These were not simply animals living in snow. They were animals built for a specific kind of Ice Age world: cold, dry, open, and grassy. After the last interglacial faded, the final glacial period took hold. For more than 100,000 years, the planet moved through cold peaks and milder intervals until the ice reached its greatest extent during the last glacial maximum, roughly 26,000 to 20,000 years ago. At that time, ice sheets covered enormous portions of the northern hemisphere. In Europe, glaciers buried Scotland and much of northern Britain. Ice expanded across Scandinavia and pushed into northern Europe. In North America, the Laurentide ice sheet covered most of Canada and reached south toward the regions that are now Chicago and New York. These ice sheets were not ordinary glaciers. They were continental machines. Some were kilometers thick. Their weight depressed the crust beneath them. Their movement carved valleys, scraped bedrock, transported boulders, and reshaped entire landscapes. Many modern lakes, ridges, basins, and hills are the leftover fingerprints of ice that vanished thousands of years ago. The glaciers also changed the oceans. So much water became locked in ice that global sea levels fell by more than 100 meters at times. Coastlines shifted outward. Continental shelves became dry land. Islands merged with continents. Britain was connected to mainland Europe by Doggerland, a low-lying region now drowned beneath the North Sea. Parts of Japan were connected to Northeast Asia during lower sea levels. And between Siberia and Alaska, a vast land connection emerged: Beringia. Beringia was not just a narrow bridge. It was a broad region of exposed land, connecting Asia and North America across what is now the Bering Strait. It was a gateway for animals, plants, and eventually humans. But Beringia also shows why the Ice Age was more complicated than a simple frozen map. This region was cold, but it was not buried under ice in the same way as Canada or Northern Europe. It remained exposed, partly because the climate was dry enough that massive ice sheets did not build over all of it. In places, it supported grasses, shrubs, wetlands, and large animals. Beringia was part of a larger, lost ecosystem. The Mammoth Steppe. The Mammoth Steppe stretched from Western Europe across northern Asia through Siberia into Beringia, Alaska, and the Yukon. It was one of the largest continuous ecosystems of the Pleistocene. Modern people have no true equivalent for it. It was not tundra. It was not boreal forest. It was not prairie in the modern American sense. It was a cold, dry, highly productive grassland filled with grasses, sedges, herbs, sagebrush, low shrubs, wildflowers, and tough plants adapted to open conditions. That sounds contradictory, a productive ecosystem beside glaciers. But the Ice Age atmosphere made it possible. The northern world was colder, but also drier. Much of Earth's water was trapped in glaciers. Sea levels were lower. Wind systems shifted. Mountains and ice sheets blocked moisture. The Tibetan Plateau helped create rain shadow effects across Asia. Scandinavian ice sheets affected moisture moving into Europe. The Laurentide and Cordilleran ice sheets influenced conditions in North America. The result was a vast interior world with less cloud cover, less heavy precipitation, and more open sunlight. Cold, dry, windy, but not dead. Grasses thrive where trees struggle. Forests need more consistent moisture. Swamps need waterlogged ground. Dense woodlands cannot easily dominate when the climate is cold, dry, and exposed. Low vegetation can survive with less water, grow during short seasons, and feed animals in enormous quantities. This is why the Mammoth Steppe supported so many giants. The vegetation created a food base. The food base supported herds. The herds supported predators. And the entire system formed a cold version of the African savanna. Not identical, but similar in one crucial way. It was open country ruled by large animals. The most famous of those animals was the woolly mammoth. The woolly mammoth descended from earlier mammoths, including the much larger steppe mammoth. Over time, woolly mammoths became specialized for cold grasslands. Their bodies carried several adaptations that made them different from living elephants. Their ears were smaller, reducing heat loss. Their bodies were covered in thick fur, with long guard hairs over a dense undercoat. A layer of fat helped insulate them. Their blood appears to have been adapted for cold, allowing oxygen transport to function more effectively in freezing conditions. Their teeth were high-crowned and ridged, built for grinding tough grasses and steppe vegetation. Their trunks ended in two finger-like projections that could grip grasses and plants with precision. Their tusks were long, curved, and powerful. They may have been used for display, fighting, clearing snow, manipulating vegetation, or social signaling. A woolly mammoth was not just an elephant with hair. It was an elephant redesigned by the Ice Age. To see a herd moving across the Mammoth Steppe would have been one of the great sights in natural history. Adult females guided calves through wind and snow. Males wandered separately, massive and unpredictable. Tusks cut bright arcs across the gray air. Long hair moved like grass in the same wind. These animals were intelligent, social, and physically immense. But even mammoths were part of a larger machine. Around them moved steppe bison. The steppe bison looked familiar enough to be recognizable, but the differences were dramatic. Its horns were enormous, sweeping outward from the skull in a span far beyond most living bison. Its body was powerful and adapted for grazing in open country. In some fossil sites, steppe bison remains are extremely abundant, suggesting that in certain regions they were among the dominant herbivores. Herds of steppe bison would have trampled paths across the grasslands, disturbed snow cover, fertilized soil, and helped maintain the open ecosystem through grazing and movement. They were not background animals. They were engineers of the steppe. Alongside them moved wild horses. Pleistocene horses were widespread across the northern hemisphere, feeding on grasses and surviving in conditions that would challenge many modern breeds. Their herds added speed and restlessness to the landscape. Reindeer moved in great numbers as well. Also known as caribou in North America, reindeer were perfectly suited to cold environments, seasonal migration, and open terrain. Their antlers, hooves, and feeding behavior made them one of the great survivors of northern climates. Muskoxen also lived across parts of the Ice Age world. Their long coats, compact bodies, and cold tolerance made them well suited for brutal conditions, though they were not always the most abundant animals on the mammoth steppe. Then came one of the strangest animals of the entire ecosystem, the saiga antelope. The saiga was smaller than the giants around it, but its face made it unforgettable. Its large, drooping nose looks almost unnatural to modern viewers. But that nose is a survival tool. It helps filter dust during dry migrations and warms cold air before it reaches the lungs. On the mammoth steppe, where herds could kick dust from dry ground and winter air could cut into the body, that nose mattered. The saiga is also important for another reason. It survived. Today, saiga antelopes still exist in parts of Central Asia, though their modern range is only a broken remnant of the enormous territory they once occupied. Their survival is a reminder that the Ice Age did not erase every cold steppe animal. Some endured by retreating, adapting, and surviving in fragments of their former world. Other giants were not so fortunate. The woolly rhinoceros was one of the most imposing animals on the mammoth steppe, roughly comparable in size to the modern white rhinoceros. The woolly rhinoceros carried a shaggy coat and 2 horns. The front horn could grow extremely long and may have been flattened from side to side. That shape suggests it could have been used to sweep aside snow and expose vegetation. But the horn was also a weapon. A woolly rhinoceros did not need to be a predator to be dangerous. A low, muscular body carrying a horn longer than a human arm would make even large carnivores cautious. For a cave lion or wolf pack, attacking a healthy adult would have been a risk not worth taking, unless the animal was injured, young, trapped, or weakened. Its body tells the story of an animal built for cold, open grazing. Thick coat, large body, powerful head, grass-processing teeth, snow-clearing horn. In the Ice Age, survival was written into anatomy. But even the woolly rhinoceros was not the strangest rhinoceros-like animal of the north. That title may belong to Elasmotherium. Often nicknamed the Siberian unicorn, Elasmotherium was a massive rhinoceros relative that may have weighed several tons. Its skull includes a large bony dome that has often been interpreted as the base for a horn or horn-like structure, though the exact shape and size remain debated. That uncertainty matters, because Elasmotherium is a reminder that the fossil record does not always give us a complete animal. It gives us pieces: skull shape, tooth structure, limb proportions, geological context. From those pieces, scientists reconstruct possibilities. What the evidence does show is that Elasmotherium was highly specialized. Its head was low, its teeth grew continuously. Its feeding anatomy suggests a powerful commitment to grazing tough vegetation close to the ground. In stable, open habitats, that specialization could be a strength. But when environments changed, specialization could become a trap. Elasmotherium appears to have had a more limited range than woolly mammoths or woolly rhinoceroses, concentrated in parts of Siberia and Central Asia. It disappeared before the end of the Pleistocene, possibly around 35,000 years ago, although exact timelines and causes remain debated. Its extinction was not the final collapse of the Ice Age world. It was an early warning. The mammoth steppe could create giants, but it could also abandon them. Another unforgettable herbivore was Megaloceros, commonly called the Irish elk. The name is misleading. Megaloceros was not a true elk in the North American sense. It was more closely related to fallow deer, but it grew to the size of a moose and carried antlers that could span more than 3 meters across. Those antlers are among the most spectacular weapons and display structures in mammalian history. They were not simple ornaments. They were biological signals, likely used in sexual display and competition between males. Growing them required nutrition. Carrying them required strength. Moving with them required open space. In dense forest, antlers that wide could become a liability. So Megaloceros was tied to open or semi-open environments where its headgear made sense. It could move through grasslands, parklands, and open woodland edges, feeding on a mixed diet of herbs, grasses, and woody plants. Its beauty came with conditions. When those conditions changed, Megaloceros became vulnerable. Like many Ice Age giants, it was not simply killed by one event. Its range shifted, its habitats changed, its populations faced pressure. Its story became part of the wider pattern of animals too specialized, too large, or too slow reproducing to easily survive a rapidly changing world. And where there are large herbivores, predators follow. The mammoth steppe was not peaceful. It was full of meat. And meat shaped everything. Gray wolves moved across the open country in packs, hunting reindeer, horses, young bison, and weakened animals. Brown bears searched for food across seasons, feeding on plants, carrion, and whatever animal protein they could obtain. But the dominant cat of the Eurasian steppe was the cave lion. The cave lion was larger than the modern African lion and built for the colder, open landscapes of the Pleistocene. Its bones, preserved remains, and ancient cave art suggest a powerful predator with no large mane. That does not make it less impressive. If anything, it gives the cave lion a colder, more severe appearance. A massive cat without the familiar symbol that makes modern lions feel recognizable. Cave lions likely hunted horses, reindeer, musk oxen, bison, and perhaps young or vulnerable mammoths. Whether they lived in large prides like African lions is uncertain. The lack of a mane may suggest different social pressures, but scientists cannot reconstruct their social lives with complete confidence. The uncertainty does not make them less dangerous. It makes the Ice Age harder to predict. A modern African lion is frightening partly because we understand its behavior. We know something about prides, territories, hunting patterns, and social roles. A cave lion gives us bones, images, and traces, enough to know it was powerful, not enough to fully know how it moved through the social world of predators. For prey animals, that unknown did not matter. A cave lion was still a giant cat capable of killing in open country. In the mountains and cave systems of Europe lived another icon, the cave bear. The cave bear's name sounds like something from a predator list, but its ecology was more complicated. Many cave bear populations appear to have been largely herbivorous, feeding heavily on plant material. Their teeth and isotopic evidence often point toward a diet different from that of a purely carnivorous killer. But herbivorous does not mean safe. Male cave bears could grow enormous, in some cases rivaling or exceeding the largest living bears. Their bodies were powerful enough to make a cave entrance dangerous territory. During winter, caves became essential shelters for hibernation. Across Europe, caves contain huge numbers of cave bear bones, the remains of animals that entered to sleep and never emerged. The cave bear's dependence on caves may have become one of its weaknesses. Humans used caves too. So did other animals. During cold periods, shelter became valuable. Competition for caves may have added pressure to animals already stressed by climate and habitat change. Cave bears vanished roughly 25,000 years ago, before the final end of the Pleistocene. Their disappearance shows that the Ice Age extinctions were not one sudden moment at the boundary of the Holocene. The unraveling began earlier, and it did not affect only animals. Europe was also home to Neanderthals. For hundreds of thousands of years, Neanderthals lived in Ice Age landscapes before modern Homo sapiens became dominant there. They were not the stupid brutes of old stereotypes. They had large brains, complex tools, fire, hunting strategies, social care, and likely symbolic behavior. Their bodies were suited to cold. Shorter limbs reduced heat loss. Broad trunks and strong muscles helped conserve energy and withstand difficult conditions. Their bones show lives of physical stress, injury, and survival. Neanderthals hunted large animals. They gathered plants when available. They made stone tools. They occupied caves and open-air sites. They endured repeated climate shifts across Europe and Western Asia. Then, around 40,000 years ago, they disappeared. The cause remains debated. Climate instability may have fragmented their populations. Competition with Homo sapiens may have added pressure. Smaller group sizes may have made them vulnerable. Disease, conflict, changing prey availability, and cultural differences may all have played roles. But the story was not simple replacement. Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred. Many people alive today carry Neanderthal DNA. That means the Neanderthals did not vanish in every sense. Part of their lineage was absorbed into ours. The Ice Age was not just the age of mammoths. It was also the world in which different kinds of humans met, and one survived. Farther south, beyond the coldest plains, the Ice Age held another set of animals. These were the warm-adapted survivors, species that had expanded during interglacial periods and retreated to refuges when the cold returned. Around the Mediterranean and other milder regions, the world looked different from the mammoth steppe. There were forests, scrublands, river systems, wooded valleys, and open grasslands that supported animals less specialized for extreme cold. The straight-tusked elephant was one of the greatest. Unlike the woolly mammoth, the straight-tusked elephant was not a shaggy grazer of the frozen steppe. It was a massive elephant relative of forests and mixed habitats, with a high domed head and long, relatively straight tusks. Some straight-tusked elephants reached tremendous sizes, larger than many mammoths and modern elephants. Their diet likely included leaves, branches, bark, shrubs, and grasses. They were mixed feeders, able to use varied vegetation in warmer landscapes. On Mediterranean islands, some elephant populations evolved in the opposite direction. Cut off from mainland resources, they became dwarfs. Over generations, natural selection reduced their body size until some island elephants were no larger than ponies. This is one of the Ice Age's quiet reversals. The same world that produced giants also produced dwarfs. Size was not the goal, survival was. Warm-adapted rhinoceroses also lived in these southern regions. Merck's rhinoceros preferred more forested environments, while narrow-nosed rhinoceroses were associated more with open habitats. These rhinos were not the fully shaggy, woolly rhinoceroses of the north, though some may have had light hair. The aurochs lived there too. The aurochs was the wild ancestor of domestic cattle, larger, stronger, and more dangerous than most cattle alive today. Unlike many Pleistocene animals, the aurochs survived deep into recorded human history. The last known aurochs died only a few centuries ago. This makes the aurochs feel different. It was an Ice Age giant that almost made it to the modern world. Cave lions ranged into warmer regions as well, showing they were not restricted only to the coldest steppe. Modern lions also lived across parts of the Old World, far beyond their current African range. And then there were spotted hyenas. Today, spotted hyenas are strongly associated with Africa. But during the Pleistocene, they ranged across huge parts of Eurasia. Ice Age spotted hyenas were often larger and more cold-tolerant than modern populations, with thick coats and bone-crushing jaws. They were not merely scavengers. They hunted. Hyena clans could bring down large animals, steal kills from other predators, and crush bones to access nutrients others could not. Their dens preserved thousands of bones, creating fossil archives of the animals they consumed. But hyenas had limits. They did not thrive in the most extreme cold. As glacial conditions intensified, their range retreated. They abandoned northern regions, then disappeared from Europe and Asia, leaving Africa as their remaining stronghold. The Old World alone would be enough to make the Pleistocene one of the most fascinating periods in natural history. But North America was even stranger. For centuries, people in North America found enormous bones and tried to explain them. Before modern paleontology, these fossils inspired speculation and legend. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, was fascinated by such remains, especially those of animals later identified as mastodons. Jefferson believed some giant animals might still survive somewhere beyond the American frontier. He was wrong. But that mistake is understandable. The bones were too large to ignore. They suggested a continent that had once carried animals far beyond the scale of anything familiar to Europeans in North America. And the truth was more extraordinary than hidden monsters. The fossils belonged to a vanished American megafauna. During the last glacial period, North America was divided by ice. The Mammoth steppe existed in Alaska and the Yukon, linked to Siberia through Beringia. But enormous ice sheets blocked much of that northern world from the rest of the continent. South of the ice sheets, the environment was not one simple landscape. It was a mosaic of grasslands, scrublands, open woodlands, wetlands, forests, and river corridors. And in that mosaic lived one of the most spectacular animal communities Earth has ever produced. In Alaska and the Yukon, woolly mammoths grazed with steppe bison. Wild horses moved through cold grasslands. Musk oxen, caribou, saiga antelope, wolves, and cave lions occupied a world similar in many ways to Siberia. But Beringia was selective. It allowed some animals to cross between Asia and North America, but not all. Woolly rhinoceroses and Elasmotherium do not seem to have established themselves in North America. Perhaps because parts of Beringia included wetter habitats or ecological barriers unsuitable for highly specialized dry steppe grazers. A land bridge is not just land, it is habitat. And habitat decides who can pass. North America also had predators that made the continent uniquely dangerous. One was Homotherium, the scimitar-toothed cat. Homotherium was different from the more famous Smilodon. Its canine teeth were shorter, flatter, and serrated. Its limbs were long, its back sloped. Its body suggests an animal better suited for endurance and open country hunting than the heavy ambush style associated with Smilodon. Some evidence suggests Homotherium may have specialized in large prey, possibly including young mammoths, horses, and bison. It may have hunted in groups, though behavior is difficult to prove from bones alone. Still, its anatomy points toward a predator built for a different kind of killing. Not just hiding in brush, but covering ground, following herds, finding weakness in animals too large for most predators to challenge. Then there was Arctodus, the giant short-faced bear. Even the name feels incomplete, because no name fully captures the animal's scale. A large arctodus standing on all fours could be as tall at the shoulder as a horse. Rearing up, it would have towered over a human. Some large males may have approached a metric ton in weight. Its limbs were long for a bear. Its body was built for moving across large distances. Scientists debate whether Arctodus was primarily a predator, scavenger, or a dominant thief that forced other carnivores off their kills. The most likely picture may vary by region and population. In the north, isotopic evidence suggests some Arctodus populations consumed large amounts of meat. That matters because an animal of that size changes the behavior of every other predator. A wolf pack at a carcass would have to respond. A cave lion at a kill would have to calculate risk. Even a human group would have no room for error. The danger of Arctodus was not just that it could kill. The danger was that it could claim space. South of the ice sheets, another giant dominated the forests, the American mastodon. Mastodons are often confused with mammoths, but they were distinct animals with different bodies and different diets. Mastodons were stockier than mammoths. Their skulls were lower and longer. Their teeth had cone-shaped cusps suited for crushing leaves, twigs, bark, and branches. They were browsers, forest animals, wetland edge animals. They belonged in wooded landscapes, not the open mammoth steppe. This distinction matters because it shows that Ice Age North America was not simply one open grassland full of mammoths. It was a continent of overlapping ecosystems. Mammoths grazed more open habitats. Mastodons browsed forests and wetlands. Different giants occupied different worlds, sometimes not far apart. The Columbian mammoth ruled much of warmer North America. Larger than the woolly mammoth, the Columbian mammoth ranged across much of the United States and into Mexico and Central America. Large males could stand nearly 4 meters at the shoulder and weigh many tons. Their tusks curved outward and upward in enormous arcs. They did not require the dense coat of the woolly mammoth. They lived in grasslands, savanna-like environments, and mixed habitats. Alongside mammoths and mastodons lived gomphotheres such as Cuvironeus, distant elephant relatives with unusual tusks. Some gomphotheres had tusks that twisted or curved in ways unlike living elephants. They add another layer to the Ice Age picture. North America was not just home to one kind of elephant-like animal. It held several proboscidean lineages, each with its own ecological role. But the most famous predator of Ice Age America was Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat. Smilodon was about the size of a large modern big cat, but far more heavily built. Its forelimbs were powerful. Its shoulders were muscular. Its tail was short. Its upper canines were long, curved blades that could extend below the jawline. Those teeth were iconic, but they were not simple weapons. They were dangerous and fragile. A modern lion can clamp onto prey while the animal struggles. Smilodon likely could not use its saber teeth in exactly the same way without risking breakage. Instead, the current interpretation is that Smilodon used its powerful forelimbs and body weight to restrain prey, then delivered a precise killing bite to the throat or soft tissue. This was not a pursuit predator like a cheetah. It was a close-range specialist, an ambush killer. Its danger came from control. If Smilodon could get close enough, knock prey off balance, and hold the body still, the saber teeth became devastating. The fossil record at places like Rancho La Brea shows Smilodon was not rare in some environments. Its bones appear in large numbers, suggesting it was a major predator in the ecosystems it occupied. And Smilodon was not alone. The American lion also moved across North America. Even larger than the cave lion, the American lion may have been one of the largest cats ever. It likely hunted large herbivores in open habitats, perhaps taking horses, camels, bison, young mammoths, and other prey. Its exact relationship to modern lions has been debated, but its role as a top predator is clear. Dire wolves were another major carnivore. They were more robust than gray wolves, with stronger jaws and bodies suited for taking down large prey. They were abundant in the fossil record, especially at Rancho La Brea, where predators were trapped after being drawn to struggling animals stuck in asphalt. Dire wolves were not fantasy monsters. They were real pack hunters in an ecosystem crowded with dangerous prey and even more dangerous competitors. Then there was the American cheetah. It was not a true cheetah, but a North American cat relative that evolved a similar high-speed lifestyle. Its existence may explain one of the strangest facts about modern North America. The pronghorn can run far faster than any living predator on the continent requires. The pronghorn may be carrying the ghost of an extinct arms race. Its speed was shaped by predators that are gone. The herbivores of Ice Age North America were just as remarkable. Ancient bison roamed the plains and gave rise to the bison of today. Giant long-horned bison carried horns that could span more than 2 meters. Wild horses were widespread, long before horses disappeared from the Americas and were later reintroduced by Europeans. Camels lived in North America too. This surprises many people because modern camels are associated with deserts in Africa and Asia. But camels originated in North America. The Western camel resembled modern camels more than llamas, though all belonged to the same broader family. It likely fed in open scrubland and grassland habitats, moving through landscapes filled with predators that no living camel faces today. Pronghorns were more diverse than they are now. And then there were the ground sloths. Modern sloths are small, slow, tree-dwelling animals of Central and South America. Pleistocene ground sloths were something else entirely. Some were bear-sized, others were as large as elephants. Their claws were enormous, their limbs were powerful. Their bodies were heavy and difficult for predators to handle. Some ground sloths may have had bony armor-like structures embedded in the skin, giving them extra protection. Different species occupied different habitats. Harlan's ground sloth favored open environments. Shasta ground sloths lived in dry and wooded regions. Jefferson's ground sloth occupied forested areas and was named after Thomas Jefferson. These animals were not helpless, slow giants. A large ground sloth could rear up, swing powerful forelimbs, and defend itself with claws that could injure almost any attacker. The Ice Age was not a simple food chain. It was a balance of risks. Predators were powerful. Prey was dangerous. A failed hunt could cripple the hunter. A wounded predator could starve. A young mammoth, a camel, a bison, or a ground sloth was meat, but every target came with consequences. Even the wetlands had giants. The giant beaver could reach over 100 kilograms, far larger than modern beavers. It may not have built dams like modern beavers, but it occupied wetland habitats and fed on aquatic vegetation. Glyptotherium, a relative of armadillos, looked like a living armored vehicle. Its body was protected by a domed shell, and its skull was short and heavy. It belonged to the broader group of armored mammals related to South American glyptodonts. Above the landscape flew huge birds, such as Pterotornis, a giant predatory or scavenging bird with a massive wingspan. From above, it would have seen a continent almost unrecognizable today. Mammoths in open country, mastodons in forests, horses and camels on plains, saber-toothed cats in brush, dire wolves in packs, lions in the open, and giant bears crossing the land like moving threats. This was North America before the modern world. and then it began to collapse. The end of the Pleistocene brought one of the most important extinction events in recent Earth history. It was not a total extinction of life. It was selective. Small animals survived in far greater numbers. Marine life was not hit in the same way. Plants changed, but did not vanish as a whole. The disaster focused heavily on large land animals, megafauna, often defined as animals over roughly 46 kilograms. The larger the animal, the greater the risk. North America lost mammoths, mastodons, horses, camels, ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, American lions, dire wolves, giant beavers, glyptodont relatives, and many others. Europe and Asia lost woolly rhinoceroses, cave lions, cave bears, straight-tusked elephants, giant deer, and more. South America lost enormous ground sloths, glyptodonts, native horses, gomphotheres, and many predators. Australia had already lost many of its giant animals earlier, including giant marsupials and huge reptiles. Africa and parts of southern Asia retained more large animals than other continents. But even there, the modern world is only a reduced version of what once existed. The woolly mammoth, symbol of the Ice Age, did not disappear everywhere at once. Most mainland populations vanished around the end of the Pleistocene or early Holocene. But isolated mammoths survived much longer on islands. On Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean, mammoths persisted until roughly 4,000 years ago. That means the last mammoths were alive after the pyramids of Egypt had already been built. But those final mammoths were not thriving giants of an endless steppe. They were isolated, genetically weakened, and trapped on a shrinking remnant of suitable habitat. Then they disappeared too. Why did the megafauna vanish? This remains one of the most debated questions in paleontology. The first major explanation is climate change. As the last glacial period ended, the planet warmed. Ice sheets melted, sea levels rose. Forests expanded in some areas. Grasslands shrank or shifted. Wetlands changed. The mammoth steppe, once enormous, fragmented and largely disappeared. For animals specialized for cold, dry, open habitats, this was devastating. Woolly mammoths lost range. Woolly rhinoceroses lost habitat. Steppe systems broke apart. Populations became isolated. And isolated populations are vulnerable. They have fewer mates, less genetic diversity, and less ability to recover from disease, harsh winters, droughts, or local disasters. Climate change was clearly part of the story. But climate alone does not explain everything. The Pleistocene had seen many climate swings before. Glaciers had advanced and retreated repeatedly. Warm interglacials had come and gone. Yet earlier changes did not produce extinctions of the same scale in the same way. So something else was different near the end. That something was Homo sapiens. Modern humans left Africa long before the Ice Age ended. They entered Europe around 45,000 years ago. They reached Siberia and eventually Beringia. Evidence suggests humans were present in the Americas by at least around 15,000 to 16,000 years ago, and possibly earlier depending on which archaeological evidence is accepted. Where humans spread, large animals often disappeared afterward. The overkill hypothesis argues that human hunting pushed vulnerable megafauna into extinction. Large animals reproduce slowly. They take years to mature. They cannot replace losses quickly. If humans killed even a small percentage of breeding adults each year, some populations could decline over generations until recovery became impossible. Humans were not physically the largest predator, but humans brought something no other predator had in the same way: long-distance planning, cooperation, weapons, fire, language, memory. The ability to track animals, coordinate attacks, and pass knowledge between generations. To prey animals that had not evolved alongside humans, this could have been catastrophic. But the overkill hypothesis also has weaknesses. Some heavily hunted animals survived, such as deer, caribou, and bison. Some extinctions do not line up perfectly with human arrival. Different continents show different timing. Some species were already declining before strong human pressure is visible. So the most likely answer may not be one cause. It may be a collision. Climate change reduced habitats. Human hunting added pressure. Slow reproduction prevented recovery. Fragmented populations became fragile. Fire changed landscapes. Predators lost prey. Ecosystems destabilized. Disease, competition, and ecological chain reactions may have done the rest. The end of the Ice Age was not a single clean disaster. It was a long unraveling. A world built over tens of thousands of years began to lose the conditions that made it possible. The mammoth steppe shrank. The herds thinned. The predators lost their prey. The forests moved. The seas rose. The ice retreated. The old corridors closed. And the giants vanished. By the time the Holocene fully arrived, Earth looked more familiar, but it was also emptier. The modern world is not the full version of nature. It is what remained after the giants were gone. And this brings us back to blue. For more than 30,000 years, the steppe bison lay in the Alaskan permafrost, sealed by the cold that had once defined the animal's world. The grassland vanished, forests spread, the climate changed, humans expanded, the cave lions disappeared, the mammoths disappeared, the steppe bison disappeared. But blue remained. When Blue Babe was discovered, the preserved bison carried a record that bones alone rarely preserve. The body showed the shape of the animal, the skin, the wounds, the evidence of predation, the conditions of freezing and burial. Blue Babe was not just a skeleton. Blue Babe was a moment. A hunt interrupted by weather, a kill stolen by cold, a body preserved by the same brutal climate that made the Ice Age possible. In one of the stranger details of the discovery, scientists even cooked and tasted a small piece of the preserved ancient bison flesh. It sounds almost absurd, but it also shows how unusually complete the specimen was. Blue Babe was not an abstract fossil from deep stone. Blue Babe was meat, hide, horn, and history. Through specimens like Blue Babe, through mammoth mummies, cave paintings, fossil beds, footprints, tools, pollen records, DNA, and glacial scars carved into the land, the lost world of the Pleistocene continues to speak. It tells us that Earth can change beyond recognition. It tells us that abundance can vanish. It tells us that giants are not guaranteed a future. It tells us that the natural world we know is only one chapter, not the whole story. Once, lions hunted bison in Alaska. Once, mammoths crossed grasslands where forests now stand. Once, saber-toothed cats waded in American brush. Once, giant bears walked across the continent. Once, humans entered a world already ruled by animals larger, stronger, and older than any civilization. That world is gone. But it is not completely silent. Every tusk pulled from the ground, every frozen carcass, every cave painting, every tooth, every scarred bone is a message from an Earth that almost survived into our own time. The last Ice Age was not fantasy. It was home. Home to giants, home to hunters, home to other humans, home to animals so close to the present that their absence still feels unfinished. And somewhere beneath the northern ground, the cold still holds pieces of that world in the dark, waiting, remembering. Not as myth, not as legend, but as evidence. The final wilderness before the modern world began.